The cow was dead, belly bloated in the dust tongue, lolling as though it had choked on a hard punchline. Sheriff Luke Harland stood over her hat low against the scorching Texas sun, his jaw clenched like a coiled spring. Two truths struck him hard. Daisy didn't die of natural causes, and someone had siphoned every last drop of water from his livestock tanks in the middle of a merciless drought. A neon green flyer pinned to a fence post flapped in defiance in the wind. Cedar Hollow HOA water use violation remedied. Luke did not have to read more. He knew who was responsible and got her, because Linda Grayson had just declared war on the sheriff of Dry Creek. He did not yell or swear. He breathed slowly, eyes tracing the bone-dry tanks, their cracked bottoms jeering the thirsty cattle lowing around. Snapping a photo of the flyer, he texted his deputy, "Trouble brewing." He wadded the paper into his pocket, like a murder scene clue, because to him, it was Linda Grayson was the type of woman who'd require an instruction manual for a blank canvas 3 years in Dry Creek, and she'd made the Cedar Hollow HOA group of 12 cookie-cutter houses, nicknamed the Fortress by locals, her own thief. In her khakis and practical loafers, she wasn't merely president, she was dictator, imposing regulations on fence colors and mailbox placement with evangelical zeal. The town gossiped about her fines, $150 for unruly wildflowers. A church forced to abandon its hand-painted sign for visual clutter, but draining a ranch's water in the middle of a heat wave that wasn't overreach, it was sabotage. The Kicker Loops Ranch wasn't even in her HOA, sitting a mile beyond its bounds. Yet Linda, drunk on her own authority, had began asserting territory first with flyers, then fines. Now, this Luke knew it was time for a reckoning. Her office was a converted garage, a shrine to bureaucracy with file cabinets, a bell on a folding table, and a sign president. It Ryer of lavender and control. Luke didn't knock, he walked in tipping his hat. Linda looked up from her binders, startled. "Sheriff," she drawled, "to what do I owe the pleasure?" "You drained my tanks," he said flatly. Her lips curled into a smug smile. "Your tanks violated Article 8, stagnant water breeds disease. We acted preemptively." "You mean vandalism," he shot back. "It's compliance," she said, hands clasped. "My duty is community harmony. This is a town, not your playground. My land's not under your HOA. "Not yet," she said coolly, flipping to a laminated page. "Our extended influence clause expands our reach. 2 miles, filed with the county." Luke leaned in. "That clause is hogwash. You can't rule people who didn't sign up. This is Texas, not your gated utopia. There are people who have guns, cows, and a dead one now. Because you played waters." Her brow arched. "If you're accusing me, Sheriff, I didn't touch your tanks. It was a community effort." "Good to know," he said. "That'll help when the lawsuits hit." Her smile turned venomous. "You should value order, Sheriff." "Or do you want chaos? I like my cattle alive." Outside, the sun scorched the earth. Luke called Deputy Maria. "Pull all the HOA records from last year, check their legality." Then he stopped by Buck's Tavern, where locals drowned their complaints in cheap whiskey reports of Daisy's death, and tanks had spread. Widow Clara, who peddled pies at the market, whispered, "She fined me $100 for raucous quilts." Rancher Pete, sipping a beer, growled, "She said my windmill was too tall." Linda's dictatorship wasn't annoying. It was stifling, shrouded in trivial rules. Luke listened, his determination hardening. That evening, riding patrol around his ranch, he spotted a drone buried in the grass, its red light flashing. Not a toy, but an expensive model with thermal vision. Someone was snooping. This wasn't just HOA crap. Seat was a deliberate attack. At first light, Luke took apart the drone, revealing a memory card with footage flyovers of his ranch tanks. Even his Porch 1 clip, dated days before, the draining featured a figure in a baseball cap vents. Linda's sidekick with a hose and bolt cutters. Luke's blood seethed. At the county records building, Maria handed him papers. Linda registered the HOA as a nonprofit, but operates like a cartel, charging unauthorized fines and fees. She submitted phony maps claiming 3 additional miles and signed by any authority. Luke scanned the documents. She forged it, and no one caught her. Until now. They drove back the open plains, feeling like war zone stories accumulated. A teacher ticketed for too many holiday lights. A vet menaced for his flagpole. Linda's green pamphlets signed in flourish were her scepter. Then a call on the radio barn fire at the Carter residence. Luke sped over, discovering smoldering wreckage and a burned HOA sign stating community ally. Mrs. Carter, frightened, reported Linda finded us for our barns. Improper color, threatened demolition. I assumed it was bluster. Luke took photos of the ruin, the acrid smell of arson in the air. This wasn't about rule, it was intimidation. Back at the station, he and Maria went over drone surveillance, phony maps, potential arson. If this were anyone else, we'd have cuffs ready. Maria nodded. People are afraid Linda threatens Lean's evictions. They believe she's untouchable. Not anymore. Luke said. He rewound the drone footage, stopping on Vince's face, grinning. Loyal time for a chat. Luke found Vince out Cedar Hollow looking for a kid for a tacky car sticker. Morning, Vince, Luke said, stepping out of his cruiser. Vince stiffened. Just doing my job, Sheriff. Got a permit for that clipboard? Luke deadpanned. Let's discuss you on my property with bolt cutters. Vince puffed up. Linda authorized it, underwater code 5D. That code's for your HOA, not my ranch. You trespassed, tampered, both crimes. Vince stumbled. I was following orders, then you'll go where I say. Vince blustered, but complied. It wasn't about locking him. Upit was a sign Linda's empire was besieged. Luke summoned the county attorney for an HOA audit and injunction. He went to see Agnes Reed, a former FBI auditor turned Nick matriarch, over coffee. She presented him HOA records she'd assembled since Linda finded her for gaudy roses. Subcommittee's visual harmony zoning enforcement piled. Finds atop fines funneled to a private account shared by Linda and Carl Tate, a wannabe survivalist who sold tactical jerky. This isn't governance, Luke said. It's a racket. Agnes slid him bank records, every cent traced. At the courthouse, Luke filed for a financial probe. The clerk, once fined for non-compliant shutters, expedited it. Linda countered with a gold-sealed letter accusing Luke of harassment and drone theft. He laughed at it, was desperate, toothless. Luke called a town hall, not a sheriff, but as a neighbor. The community center buzzed. Ranchers, parents, vets. He laid out the drone fake maps and Agnes's ledger, reading a notice on non-conforming birdhouses. Laughter became anger. Linda is not the law, he stated. She intimidated us into silence. No more. The doors burst open. Linda stormed in, accompanied by Vince, bailed out Carl with a clipboard, and blogger, Nancy wearing oversized shades. This is against HOA protocol. Linda brayed, waving binders. You're causing anarchy. You're a glorified book club with a god complex. Luke responded. You're under investigation for fraud, surveillance, and theft. He slapped a green citation on the podium. You're cited for defaming Dry Creek. Linda slapped her own. You're cited for ethical violations. Luke didn't flinch. You're facing jail, so get a lawyer. The crowd roared laughter, cheers. Linda Pauld stormed out, Carl trailing. Vince slunk away. Nancy deleted posts. Agnes handed Luke cookies. First shot. Fired. Sheriff Rain. Fell, the first in months, as Luke stood in it. The weightlifting. Linda's empire cracked. Trent was arrested at the feed store quoting Patriot rights. Nancy attempted wiping her drive, but was cuffed mid. Panic Vince yielded, providing donuts. Luke gave to Agnes. Linda disappeared, her SUV missing mailbox filled. Luke knew she'd reemerge where she felt in charge. She did barricading her garage office, declaring it a civic sanctuary with chairs and a whiteboard. Sheriff violates ethics. Luke came alone, warrant in hand. Linda shouted through a megaphone, "This is a siege on governance." He enumerated charges: fraud, illegal surveillance, tampering. "You're not allowed to arrest a president," she cried. "You're at a garage," he said, going around her barricade. He grabbed her shoulder. "It's done." Her resistance collapsed. Neighbors recorded, not on her tape, but for justice. She went peaceably. That evening, Dry Creek breathed again. Luke sat at his porch, nibbling Agnes's pie, as kids wrapped Halloween lights onto houses beyond fines. He chuckled on Maria's call, Linda's plaintive arguing, HOA jurisdiction. Luke smirked before or after seceding fences got reconstructed, repaired tanks filled no more chime fines. Luke's new gate sign read, Private land, no HOA. Linda's trial loomed, but Dry Creek had its soul back. Daisy's death wasn't for nothing sparked a rebellion.